Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and this shit is blowing up more and more. So yeah, with the recent Custodes debacle with Games Workshop and 40k, there's been a lot of stuff going on. A lot of doomerism, which I can't really fault people too much for. A lot of coping from both sides, and a lot of back and forth. Like, this went from a level I expected, which I expected a huge backlash from the community. I expected pretty much a lot of 40k content creators to bring this up and talk about this, which there have been, by the way, and we're going to get into that a little bit today. But this stuff is starting to reach outside of the 40k sphere and the tabletop sphere, for better or for worse. I mean, large content creators like the Quartering, which I'm not the biggest fan of the Quartering, but just as a litmus test, or an example anyway, of the sphere outside of 40k specifically that are starting to cover this, a lot of people are starting to hit on the topic of this big retcon, this huge 40k female Custodes thing. It's reaching well outside 40k now, and the Daily Mail is even freaking talking about it. And again, this is better or for worse. It's debatable on whether this should have been more in-house, or whether, you know, it's a good thing that that it's getting picked up. I would argue it's a better thing that it's being picked up by a lot of other people and it's being spread, because that's going to drum up more support from the other communities that have been violated and molested by the woke ideology. We're going to get support from the Star Wars community that were fucked up by that. We're going to get support from a lot of other nerd spaces that have been divisive and ripped apart by woke ideology. Honestly, I would argue it's a good thing, but that's my subjective opinion. There's plenty of room for why this might also be a bad thing. The one I'll give credit to is this should remain in-house within the community. That way, the end result feels more like a community-earned thing. Like, if it's just the community having this civil war about this, and then one side kind of gets the ledge over the other, it showcases that the community collectively found a solution that satisfies the majority. Once outside forces start tangibly getting involved like this, it becomes a much bigger fight than just the community and just the hobby itself. But again, I think it's already like that. I mean, we already know BlackRock and Vanguard are the ones who basically caused this to happen. We don't have any proof other than the stock shares, but that's all you really need. Like, there's no other question why, in my opinion. So we already know outside forces are influencing this whole thing. So again, as far as I'm concerned, might as well bring as much to bear as we can, since they're already bringing everything they can. So yeah, just wanted to denote that. And yeah, like I said, a lot of content creators outside myself have covered this. Arch covered it. Valrix talked about it. Major Kill, the dipshit Hellstore Wargaming. Like, lots of people are talking about this. And again, that comes as no surprise to me. It's been a shit show. I'll be frank. It's been a shit show. Lots of barbs being thrown both sides. I love it to an extent. It's fun to watch some of the chaos, but once you're so, like, connected to it as I am, once you're so, like, into it, as much as I might have some, like, temporary fun watching some of the chaos, I'd rather this had not happened. You know, I'd rather the Custodes lore remain the same. I'd rather 40k still feel somewhat of a secure hobby that isn't being influenced by politics. But after all this, that's forever going to be in the forefront of everything for me. So yeah, it's been a bit cathartic, and you know, of course, Arch covered it, I covered it. Friend of the channel, Wheezy Pillar, he's been talking about it. Wheezy's been a lot more like calm and toned than I have, to give him credit. So if you're looking for someone who's a little less aggressive or a little less hype man about it, go to Wheezy. If you're, you know, for me though, I'm much more aggressive about this. I'm much more volatile, I'll admit. And, you know, obviously, my initial video, even before we I almost said James Workshop, before we got Games Workshop shitty as hell, like, tweet, just saying, oh, it was always like this. Even before that, I was calling for a boycott and all that stuff, so take it for where it comes. I'm an aggressive person when I see my hobby and my space being invaded like this. But if you're looking for someone who's a bit more calm and even-toned, talk to Weezy. Check out Weezy stuff. But yeah, like, again, other people, though, like, with larger followings, Mr. H reviews and stuff, you know, he talked about the situation. Yellow Flash, whether you like him or hate him, he covered it. Quartering, like I said. And, of course, the usual suspects from the other side. This goes both ways. The shit show that is Hellstorm Wargaming, this total twat. He covered it. I don't even need to watch his video to know what he's going to say. He's the guy who already admitted that the push for female Space Marines is all about it's all about conquering the hobby space for a political ideology. He straight up said that. Like, he was asked, why Space Marines? What about Sisters of Battle? Why do you need female Space Marines? And he said, well, Sisters of Battle aren't the poster boys. This was this guy. So, again, total prick, total piece of shit, waste of human space, waste of oxygen. Lutin covered it. Lutin covered it about as what I had expected. At most charitable, he fence rode. That's the way I'm gonna put it. Lutin fence rode it. He was like, oh well, there's other retcons and stuff that's happened. So this isn't that big of a deal. Oh, I'm more interested in hearing what people think 6 months down the road than initially. Like, he fucked off. Like, I didn't expect anything less. I mean, he kowtows a lot to Games Workshop and stuff, so that doesn't shock me. Again, I take it from where it comes. I don't like Lutin. He's in the past said stuff like 40k has no canon lore. In this video, he makes the defense that, you know, hey, well, you're in the wrong hobby if you want any kind of consistency. He basically says that. So, you know, he excuses it for the most part. So again, most charitably, you can say fence road. Honestly, in my opinion, he took the other side, just passively, not aggressively. So yeah, that's Lutin. Not much of a shock, really. Again, I don't hate the guy personally. I don't know him personally, but as a fellow hobbyist, I've always respected him as a hobbyist, and I'll say this, I still do. Like, I respect Lutin as a hobbyist. He's clearly passionate, clearly cares. I'm not going to take that from him, but he's a bitch. I'll put it like that. He's a bitch. He didn't defend this at all, and he didn't take a strong position. So, that's me. Again, I won't be surprised if I get a ton of dislikes just for saying that, but I'm being blunt. And again, I'm a more aggressive person. That's my personality. I make no apologies for it. That's just who I am. So, I'll put it like that. Again, I expect plenty of dislikes just for saying that, because Lutin is well loved within the community, rightfully so. Again, I'm not going to take that from him. He's a true hobbyist, a true passionate member of the community. I just think that this was an opportunity for him to really showcase that he's, at the very least, somewhat defensive of the lore he covers, but not so much, I guess. And of course, then there's Bricky. Bricky made a lot, is probably, and I'm going to give Bricky this major credit. He and the Adeptus Ridiculous podcast are directly responsible for a huge flood of new people over the last few years. At the time, I thought it was for the better. Now I definitely think it was for the worse. But regardless, he definitely he offered a very good, comprehensive introduction to 40k. And I won't take that from him. I still stand by that those videos are good. Thankfully, politics free. But anyone who knows anything about Bricky knows he's woke. Like, he's from the West Coast of the United States, where, you know, that political ideology is the most prevalent. Like, in fact, it's the only real political ideology that way. Conservatism or libertarianism, or if you're anything other than Democrat, you either don't talk at all to anybody about politics, or you don't really, you know, hang out anywhere super social in those locations. It's not safe to over there, because they'll attack you, like it's that rampant over there. Then again, you might get attacked anyway by all the people with like heroin needles on the side of the road in San Diego and stuff. But that's a barb and a half on its own. But I've always respected Bricky, because whenever I've seen him on Dice Check, or when I've seen him in the Adeptus Ridiculous podcast, he's never been bringing his politics into the discussion. He's remained relatively hobby focused, which I've always respected. And As long as he does, I respect him in those moments. But in this particular video, well, I'll let him speak for himself here.
This is just the start. Eventually, it's going to become female Space Marines. It's just the beginning. Probably, yeah. I mean, it's not too hard to fit it into lore in a way. Just have Call do it, you know? God, what other stuff have they just completely pulled out of their ass from, like, old school lore? Million.
He defends it. So unlike Lutin, I can say most charitably Fence Road, Bricky's taking the other side hard. He's sucking the hardcore cock over there, which is fine. Again, it's nothing I didn't expect really. I would have preferred him to not say anything, but that was never gonna happen, right? I don't think anyone who's followed Bricky for any amount of time at all would have expected him to keep his mouth shut, especially with his community as rampant as they are. They would have harassed him until he said something. So he's taking the other side, and he's demeaning and diminishing and insulting anybody who takes the hobbyist side, who's taking the fan side. Again, that should come as no surprise. He himself says he's woke in this. I'd have to agree with him, because in the video he says, if you didn't know that about me, you haven't been watching my content. And it's true. If you know anything about Bricky, he's a woke guy. 100%. Like, that's no surprise. I've always respected him for keeping it out of the hobby, but after all this, I didn't expect him to. So that's just what it is. So generally speaking, this topic is really blowing up. I do expect it to die down eventually. It isn't right now. It's likely not going to for a while. Yeah. I'm not gonna say like it's a good thing if it did die down anytime soon, because honestly, if we want to try and like enforce ourselves in the space and try and push back against this, we can't be quiet about it. So we got to keep, stirring the pot. We really need to. And again, everyone who watches my videos and who's covering this topic, here's a big thing I need to stress to people: don't quit the hobby if you want this change not to stand. If you want this retcon to be undone, if you want to push back against our hobby being invaded, you really need to stand your ground. Like, don't let them kick you out of your hobby space, because they can't. And that's the thing. If you pay attention to the discourse on Twitter or anywhere else, what is the main thing that these people are saying to everybody who's even voicing a hint of disappointment? Burn your minis on the way out. They want you to do that. They want you to quit. They want you to leave, and they want you to burn your cherished memories behind. For them, that's a victory sign. Like, they're taking joy in your misery and in your suffering. They're taking joy in that. And when you confront them about that, they'd be like, well, I don't regret taking joy in someone who has such a problem with women. Totally ignoring the fact that it's not about gender. It's not about women. It's about a piece of fundamental lore that has remained fundamental to the Custodes as a brotherhood for years and years, just being retconned out of nowhere, no ceremony, absolutely no build-up, no legwork whatsoever being done, and it was basically done in the codex and in a tweet. That's it. Instead, they thought it was better to spit in our fucking faces, and Bricky, I guess, respects that, getting spat in the face and told, well, it's just a thing. And he writes it off as, well, first time they've retconned other stuff. Never something this fundamental or this reinforced. He brings up the example in his video, by the way, about the Necrons. Their retcon coming in a whole edition after they were just Terminator ripoffs. It's not the same thing. They had nothing in their background to begin with. It was a blank slate. They just added to them. They actually gave them something. The Custodes have had an existing fundamental lore with characters, with stories, with books, with novelizations, with focus. So much of it, always showcasing this aspect about them, that they were a male faction. They were a brotherhood. And now it's changed. Now, if they'd done the legwork, I think it's fair to make the argument that there was more room to make Custodes have women in them. But in the current climate and with everything else around this situation, it's clear it's political. This was done for ideology. This wasn't done because there's any tangible benefit. Bricky himself doesn't speak to any virtue that this adds. He doesn't talk about how good this is. Neither does Lutin. That's the thing. All the people defending this don't have anything good to say in regards to how it affects the hobby, how it affects the faction. They just simply say, "Oh, well, why do you care?" Or, "Well, if you have a problem with this, then that means you should have had a problem with every other retcon." Oh, first time, stuff like that. But one thing I don't hear them saying is how this benefits the Custodes. How is this an improvement on the setting? How is this something that is a logical conclusion and an addition to the lore that was A, necessary, B, actually enhances or adds to the setting and community? Like, how so? Well, you'll notice they don't say anything like that because they know there isn't. This is a nothing burger in terms of an improvement. There's no improvement being had. It's a change for change's sake. And why is that change being done? Now that's where the backlash comes from. Because the why is for political pandering. This moment has now dictated that the hobby will and can change with enough screeching and ringing from a political ideology. Who wants to get into a hobby and get into a lore, into a setting that can change on its fundaments like that? After a couple of tweets like that. I don't. I don't know anybody else who does. I don't think anyone would be comfortable with that. There's no reason to be that invested. So, feel free to make your disingenuous statements, Bricky. Same with Lutin. Same with Hellstorm Wargaming and all the other cucks who are glad to suck the dick of a political ideology. Feel free. But me and my fellow real hobbyists will continue to push back. Because you're not going to kick us out. We're staying. This is our hobby. I'm not saying it's not your hobby too, but it's our hobby as well. And you're not going to change it for us. Because let's be honest. You don't care. You don't give an ounce of a damn about anything to do with 40k right now. That's why you're excusing it. Because in the face of your political ideology, what's one hobby? Especially when it panders to you. So anyway, that's my video about this and kind of a little bit of an update and talking about how this is kind of blowing up. This is getting bigger. And again, I'm more aggressive about all this. If you're looking for a bit of a more toned back point of view or perspective, feel free to check out Wheezy Pillar. A lot more relaxed than I am, a lot more restrained. If you're looking for more of an intellectual grasping kind of pontifications, check out Arch. But if you want more flat, blunt aggression and honesty, that's me. So anyway, that's it for my video. That's it for my update. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like if you did. I feel like I'm getting plenty of dislikes from the Lutin fans and from the Bricky fans, but I'm not surprised. I welcome it if anything. Anyway, that's it from me. Hope you guys are having a good day, good week. Make sure to enjoy the hobby. Don't let any of this ruin it for you. And just don't engage in 10th edition or 9th edition. Just read the old books, read the old lore, and have your cutoff point. Because I have mine. Anyway, catch you guys later. Bye-bye.